Today's video is going to be all about fresh fragrances. Think energetic, uplifting, smell fresh all day types of scents. So if you like the sound of that, then please do keep on watching. Hello everyone and welcome back to my channel, or welcome to my channel if it's the first time you are visiting. Thank you so much for joining me today. As I already mentioned in the intro, today's video is going to be all about fresh fragrances, and I haven't yet filmed a video just about fresh fragrances, so I thought now we are in the summertime, it would be appropriate to film my fresh recommendations. So without further ado, let's get started on my first fragrance recommendation. First up, we have Wulong Cha by Nishane, and this one is such a perfect, energizing, fresh fragrance, specifically for the spring, summer. However, I would personally wear this all year round because I love the feeling that it gives me. In the opening, you have bergamot, mandarin, and orange, so lots of kind of zesty citruses. The oolong tea then comes through and cuts through a little bit of that zesty sweetness in the opening, sprinkle in a little bit of nutmeg, add some fig in the base, and you are just left with the most gorgeous, aromatic, fresh and clean fragrance in my opinion. Now you do have to enjoy a green touch to your scents because I guess you can tell from the notes anyway, this is a slightly green fragrance. However, the oolong tea adds almost a smokiness. So oolong tea is a little bit smoky. It's a little bit darker than, let's say, a green tea. And green tea can be a little bit powdery, whereas oolong tea is a little bit sharper, a little bit smokier. And then you add in a little bit of spice from the nutmeg. You have the creaminess from the fig. There is also a musk note in the base. But how I perceive Wulong Cha is mostly a citrusy tea fragrance, and I do love my tea fragrances, but it really does leave me feeling energized every time I wear this one, and I think it's such a fantastic fresh fragrance. So let's move on to a clean freshie, and I have a lot of clean freshies in my collection. I've tried to keep this list very varied because I do a lot of videos on kind of the clean aesthetic or clean fragrances. So I'm not going to mention too many of those in this video. However, this one definitely deserves to be in the list, and it is from Unwe Nomad, and this one is Sunbleached. Just a perfect fresh fragrance that also smells like fresh linen. It's a little bit beachy too. And yeah, I just absolutely love this composition. It's so gorgeous. Fresh, clean laundry, lasts a long time on my skin, not as long as some of the other ones, I will caveat it with that. It's more like 7 hours on my skin personally, but I don't mind carrying around decants and reapplying through the day if I love a fragrance. However, it's quite rare that I'm out the house for more than 7 hours anyway, so that doesn't bother me personally. Yeah, this is clean laundry. I believe there's actually a linen note listed in this composition. Lots of ambrette in the opening. You've got bergamot. There is also cardamom. Yes to the cardamom. Absolutely love it. There's some slight white florals, but not too much at all. It's a very light floral that's in here. And then you've got lots of musk and vanilla in the base. It really is such a beautiful, clean smelling, fresh fragrance. And if you are a regular viewer of my channel, you probably already know by now, I really love Unwe Nomad. There are so many fragrances within their collection that are big loves for me, and they are really great quality for the price point. And Sunbleached really hits the mark when it comes to a clean and fresh fragrance. Truly special in my opinion. It is very much the feeling of the color white. It is fresh laundry, but with a little bit of a twist with the ambrette, the cardamom, even a little bit of the vanilla in the base. So yeah, highly recommend Sunbleached as a spring and summer freshie. Next up, we have Cardamom Moss by EPC, also known as Experimental Perfume Club. And I've had this fragrance on my radar for at least 6 months. I went to the Experimental Perfume Club in London, and it's a really cool boutique. You can actually go and make your own semi-bespoke fragrance, or you can do a perfume making course there. But they have fantastic scents that are pre-made that you can purchase. And Cardamom Moss stood out to me from the beginning. I absolutely loved it. I did have a 10 ml size of this first, and now I have the bigger size bottle, which I am very, very happy about. And this is a freshie that James and I both love equally. I think it is such an incredible scent. And if you watch my channel, you will know I am a big fan of cardamom in fragrances. And this is done in such a beautiful way. And it is very, very long lasting, which for fresh fragrances you don't often get, so that gives it major plus points. So of course this fragrance has a note of cardamom, and it also has a note of oak moss, but there are also some other interesting notes going on within this composition, one of them being ginger, and I'm sure many of you already know, but I love a note of ginger in fragrances. I find it so invigorating, and it makes it such a perfect note to go in a fresh fragrance. There's a little bit of turmeric in here too, and I think I get it. I'm not sure if I would have known there was turmeric in here if I hadn't read the notes first, but turmeric almost gives a fragrance a slightly earthy and spicy vibe. There's also a driftwood note, there's cinnamon, tobacco, musk, ambroxan, and an added dose of caramel. This fragrance is truly special in my opinion. I would highly recommend checking it out if you do like your cardamom based fragrances. This is straight down the line unisex in my opinion. Like I said, is very long lasting, projects beautifully. Anytime I've worn this, I have a really big scent bubble around me, so I don't have to worry about my fresh fragrance wearing off during the day. And if I could sum this fragrance up simply in terms of what notes I perceive the most, it is definitely the cardamom. I do get lots of musk and ginger too. I pull out the ambroxan, and I do get a little bit of moss, but I don't find it personally overpowering. So yeah, I highly recommend Cardamom Moss by the Experimental Perfume Club as a fresh fragrance for everyone. The next fragrance is from Amouage, and this one is Lineage. And this is one of their newest fragrances that came out in the Odyssey collection. Now, guidance from this collection is getting so much love, but my personal favorite from the 4 fragrances that were released is Lineage. And when you read the notes, I feel like you might be expecting something a little bit different from the composition. However, I would say this is more of a spicy freshy in my opinion, even though the notes suggest that this is more of an amber fragrance. Now don't get me wrong, this does have amber in it too, you perceive it, but this is a really underrated freshie in my opinion. There is a hefty dose of ginger, of course, that's probably why I like it. It has Szechuan pepper, it has saffron, so you can see where the spicy element is coming from this freshie. There is lots of olibanum, fenugreek, and myrrh. But what I really perceive from this is the spicy notes, and there is a really fresh quality, and I'm not sure where that is coming from. It's kind of dry. It reminds me of the high heat, and I just feel like this blossoms in the spring and summer. It has a slight salty vibe to it, which I can't place. I'm not sure where it's coming from, but it's an absolute powerhouse. The combination of the ginger, the Szechuan pepper, that beautiful rich saffron, add in the myrrh, the fenugreek, olibanum. It is a really, really well composed fragrance that I feel like more people need to get their nose on. Just such an incredible, long-lasting, fresh and spicy fragrance that feels a little bit aquatic too. If you do like the sound of the notes, do get a sample of this one. It is, of course, an expensive fragrance, so I would recommend maybe not blind purchasing it, but I highly recommend this as an incredible freshie. I'm going to change the scent profiles up a little bit and talk about a more feminine leaning fragrance. And it is none other than Delina La Rose by Parfums de Marly. And this one is definitely a fresh take on a floral. Now it does have some backbone still. It is very much a floral fragrance, but I perceive this to be more of a watery, aquatic floral, which the notes would suggest too. It's definitely a very light version of Delina. So if you've tried Delina and you found it maybe a little bit too potent or a little bit too sharp, and you want something a little bit lighter wearing, then I would highly recommend checking out Delina Rosee, because I do flick between Delina and Delina Rosee as being my number one from the trio. You do have the similar notes in here, like the lychee, like the pear. You've got the peony and the rose, minus the rhubarb, which is really sharp to some people in the original Delina. I feel like the bottle is also a really good representation of how Delina La Rose smells. They got it spot on with this. And I know when it first launched, some people felt like it was a little bit redundant to have another flanker. However, I don't agree with that, because I feel like it's different enough, and there are people I know that aren't big fans of Delina, but they do enjoy Delina La Rose. So I guess that is the whole point of a flanker, right? To try and hit a different audience, or give an audience that already likes the original something a little bit different from their collection. So I don't feel like this is redundant at all in my collection. It's a really gorgeous, fresh, floral fragrance, and that is why I have included it in this list. My next recommendation is Dear Polly by Wilhelm, one of my favorite tea fragrances in my collection. This one is really special to me. This one is so good, extremely fresh. However, I will caveat this with, I will wear this all year round. I absolutely adore this. This to me fits in the cool girl aesthetic, minimalist chic. It's not necessarily a clean fragrance, but it's definitely a fresh fragrance. You have bergamot and apple in the opening, and it's definitely a green apple, very sharp. But I wouldn't say this is overly apple. You definitely get the bergamot, and then the black tea cuts through. And it's definitely a tea fragrance, but not as tea prominent as some of the other fragrances on the market. So I still would highly recommend checking this out, even if you're not necessarily a huge fan of tea. And in the base, you have black amber, musk, and oak moss. And I just absolutely think this is super special in terms of a tea fragrance. I kind of want to wear this today, but I'm already wearing Lineage now. Maybe I could wear two fragrances today. It's so fresh, so zingy, very uplifting, very happy. That is the word I would describe Dear Polly as, a very happy fragrance. So yeah, I have reviewed this one on my channel already. Any of the fragrances that I have spoken about today, please do let me know if you do want more detailed reviews, but I would highly recommend Dear Polly as a great fresh fragrance. I have to include this next fragrance, and it is none other than Bal D'Afrique by Byredo, and it is one of my favorite fresh fragrances in my collection, widely loved by both James and I. And I just think this is just a beautiful fresh fragrance. Yeah, this is citrus, mostly lemon though in the opening, and I get a lot of vetiver. There's quite a lot of notes in Bal D'Afrique. However, I don't really pick all of those notes out. It's a little bit musky in the base, and you get a teeny bit of woodiness. However, to me, it is mostly a very fresh lemon fragrance with lots of vetiver. And they are not normally the types of notes that I would go for. However, every time I wear Bal D'Afrique, it just makes me feel so good. It's a very cool fragrance as well. So again, within that cool girl, cool guy aesthetic. There is also some blackcurrant. There's a little bit of bergamot, which adds to that citrus opening. And then there's tagettes, which adds a slightly green, aromatic vibe to it. Now, Bal D'Afrique will always be in my collection, and I would recommend this as a really good place to start for a beginner getting into niche, but beautiful fresh fragrance, had to include it in this list. My next recommendation is Killian Roses on Ice. And I know this fragrance is not super popular from the brand. However, I think it's really, really good, specifically as a fresh fragrance. Now, I've described this in a video before as being a little bit confusing because people see the name Roses on Ice and they are expecting a very rose dominant fragrance, and it is not that. Instead, this is more of a rose gin with lots of ice and then a little bit of cucumber in the glass. To me, you definitely pick out the cucumber note, maybe more than the rose note. And that's why I'm saying it's more like a rose gin, because if you have ever had rose gin, most of them aren't super strong in that rose scent or that rose flavor. It's quite subtle. I get the feeling of lots of crushed ice, fresh cucumber. You're getting the juniper from the gin, and it just leaves me feeling extremely fresh every time I wear this one. There is musk and sandalwood in here too, but how I perceive this is, yeah, it is a rose gin and tonic, lots of ice, cucumber. There is quite a lot of juniper in here, so I pick out more juniper than I do the rose. So it is definitely a very strong gin and tonic, I will say that. And then there's a little bit of lime. I won't stick on this one too long either, but I think it is an underrated gem from Kilian. You just have to really enjoy your aromatic, fresh fragrances, but it will give you a cooling feeling if you wear this one, which is perfect in the summertime. So that was Roses on Ice by Kilian. So that was all of the fragrances that I wanted to discuss in today's video. I have a lot more fresh fragrances in my collection. So if you do want to see a part 2, please do let me know. But what I most want to know, and it's what I always want to know, is what are your favorite fresh fragrances? What are the ones that you reach for when you just want to feel energized, you want to smell clean and fresh? Please do let me know down in the comments. I will check them out and hopefully discover some new fragrances. But thank you so much for joining me today. I hope to see you in a future video to come. Have a wonderful day. See you soon and goodbye.